Well, for more reaction, we're now joined by Emeritus Professor of History from the University of KwaZulu-Natal, Professor Donal Mccracken. Thank you so much indeed for joining us. Welcome to the programme.
Thank you for having me. It's a historic day.
It certainly is. And I think in the coming days, people will start to get a full sense of just how momentous this is. At the beginning of the programme, I was speaking to one of my colleagues, and it's incredible to think that, you know, she spoke to prime ministers such as Winston Churchill so long ago. That's how much history that she's been a part of.
The British monarchy is the greatest monarchy in the world. It's over 1,000 years old, although the ruling house that's on the throne at the moment dates from the 1720s. But it has an aura about it, and it has a great ability to survive. And the Queen, who has just passed on, didn't always get things right. I would agree, incidentally, with what Minister Pandey said about her relations with South Africa. I think she loved Africa. I think there's no question about that. And that she was, in her own quiet way, ahead of the pack when it came to decolonization, what we would call decolonization nowadays, that she realized what the future was. She saw the future. And I think that's the secret of the English royal family. They don't always get it right. She didn't get it right about Princess Di's death. And, I think there was the saga of Meghan Markle was a saga, and it shouldn't have been a saga. Although when you're over 90, to what extent the Queen was in control, one just doesn't know. But the ability of the monarchy to change. England is now a multicultural and recognised and accepted as a multicultural country. It's not the jingo country of the pre-war era when she was born in the 1920s, and the hereditary principle, the House of Lords is there, but it's not there. It's certainly on its way out. Certainly not what it was. She agreed to pay taxation, income tax, for the first time in British history. She sacrificed the royal yacht. You know, she knew in her own quiet, gracious way. She knew what had to be done.
Many people question the value of the monarchy and the Queen, etc. But she did bring a lot of tourists and a lot of revenue to the United Kingdom just by her institution.
Yeah, I mean, the British said the Irishman, the British are the best when it comes to pageantry, and the Queen and the royal family are straight in the middle of all that pageantry. So Britain had a revolution. Every country has its revolution. Britain had its revolution in the 17th century, in the 1760s, and they tried a republic. And it didn't really work too well. It certainly left a nasty taste in the mouth of people living in England ever since. So I don't think the monarchy is threatened. I think that she, in her own funny, quiet way, has saved it. That doesn't mean that there isn't going to be mighty big changes in the next 2 years.
So she stayed on. A lot of people thought that she might abdicate at one point as she got older, but one gets a sense that she could never have thought of that because it was her duty to stay on.
Yes, and there are conspiracy theories about her wanting to keep her son out. The relationship between a monarch and the heir apparent in British history is notorious for relationships. You go back to Queen Victoria, and she died in 1901. and she did not get on at all well with the Prince of Wales, with Edward. He became Edward VII, and she saw it out. I mean, she was a mighty age when she passed on. But I don't know that is necessarily true. I don't think so. I think that she just felt that this is how it is. This is how it has always been. There isn't a tradition in Britain. I know about Edward VIII and the abdication and all that, but there isn't a tradition of abdicating unless you're like Charles I. You're just about to get your head cut off or something. And I think that's why she stayed on. I don't think there was anything sinister or nasty in it.
What do you think she contributed to the history of the world?
To the history of the world, very little, because she wasn't a politician and she wasn't allowed to be involved. They say that a British monarch can give advice and caution, but beyond that, nothing. So she wasn't a great statesperson. While she got on very well with Mandela, Mandela achieved more. What her position was to basically keep the constitutional dispensation in Britain stable. And remember, Britain comes out of the Second World War. It goes into depression. The Labour is emerging. There are tense times, and the modernisation of Britain. And she just quietly saw that through. I don't think when they open up the archives and read her correspondence, the historians of the future, they're going to find an awful lot of surprises. I don't really think that she was a mover and shaker in that respect. Her importance is in that she maintained her institution and modernized it.
Not very emotional, certainly not publicly, but I think the one thing that we knew is that she loved her husband dearly, and that is regarded as one of the greatest love stories of our time.
Well, I don't know. I met Prince Philip when he came to Durban, and we had a very pleasant 10 minutes together talking about indigenous trees in the Lubombo Mountains, of all things. And he was very good humoured and very entertaining. And I thought he was the foil to her, some would say drabness, but to her quietness, if you want to be more charitable. Yes, I think it was a great love affair, and I think he was very, very important. I don't for her to continue in that role where you couldn't speak, where you were always on show. A little bit of light humour, light relief now and then is an important thing.
How much did she lean on him during her reign?
Well, I think considerably. Here again, it is very difficult to know because, as I say, the archives aren't open, and we won't really know the truth until we see inside the correspondence and the papers. And people will now start writing their memoirs and saying things. One thing that struck me was, and has always struck me, and I've met two people who've been close to the royal family. One was an aide to the Prince of Wales, and the other one was a lady-in-waiting, actually a South African, who was a lady-in-waiting to the Queen. And what always struck me was just how careful they were about what they said. They never gave any state secrets away. The only state secret I ever got out of the lady-in-waiting, the Queen's lady-in-waiting, was that the Queen's favourite fruit was the lychee. And that was the sum total of it. I never got anything else. So there was this deep loyalty that people had that surrounded her. Look, she was the right person in the right job at the right time.
We will look at her and talk about her as the Queen, but actually she was also a mum, a grandmother and a great-grandmother to 4 children, 8 grandchildren and 12 great-grandchildren. What do we know about her as a family woman?
Well, I think she did as well as she could do in circumstances. All families have got their dramas. All families have got their problems. The issue with the royal family is that, of course, you're in the public domain all the time. So things are blown out of proportion and are made worse because of that. And the only way to handle that, and I think that this is going to appear in the relatively near future, is to change the relationship of royal family to media and to the nation. And I think what you'll find is that the new King Charles III, who incidentally is going to be a very nice sort of go-between in relation to what Charles I was and Charles II was in personality and in character. I think what he will do is that he'll slim down the monarchy so that you don't have all these public figures on the civil list, as they call it. That is getting money from the government to follow their royal duties. And I think that you'll find that the royal family, in inverted commas, will be boiled down to basically the monarch and the monarch's children, and that will be it.
What do you see happening next to the royal family without the Queen? Because she was a fixture that set the tone in many ways of the House of Windsor. What happens now under Charles in a modern society that's evolving faster than ever?
Yeah, well, that's what I say. I think, first of all, it's going to get smaller. It's going to be much leaner. I think that a lot of those who are in the public eye will just quietly disappear from it. But I think also that the system will be changed. I think, for instance, the honour system is long overdue. And I think it hasn't been reformed because people were waiting, basically, cynically speaking, that people were waiting for the monarch to.
All right, it looks like we've lost Professor Donal Mccracken from the University of KwaZulu-Natal, Emeritus Professor of History, sharing his thoughts about the Queen, who has passed away today, sadly, after longest reign in British history. 96 she was when she passed away. And she's died 18 months after her long-time love husband, Prince Philip, passed away. There's all sorts of things that will start to come out over the next couple of days as people uncover the stories behind the story. And we believe that the UK's plan for the passing of the Queen was codenamed London Bridge. But there was also another provision that if she died whilst in Scotland, it was going to be called Operation, the Unicorn rather, because the unicorn is the national animal of Scotland and forms part of the royal coat of arms along with the Lion of England. So the unicorn, that's what it's called because she died at Balmoral in Scotland, where she spent a lot of her time. Windsor Castle, another one of her favourite places.